little bitty bridge. The water came from here all the way over to that church right across the field right there. That's a little town called Cockney. All right, it's just a little hamlet. There's about 4 or 5 houses over there. Now, I've talked over the last couple of days that the 101st Airborne Division mission was to secure the roads, the intersections, and the bridges. The 82nd Airborne Division's primary goal was to secure these towns, right? Like St. Mary Glees, that's just right behind us. Chef de Pont, which we're staying in right over there. Peekaville, that happened to be, Peekaville is where the castle's at. That happened to be the headquarters for the SS. They were right down the road. So there was a lot of activity. So around midnight, paratroopers started jumping in. And for those of us that watched Band of Brothers episode 2 the other day, we saw the chaos that ensued when we started jumping in. Where's my sergeant major at? Where's he at? Where's Tom at? There's Tom. How many sticks landed where they were supposed to?
10 of 81.
10 of 81. How many paratroopers jumped in for the U.S. Armed Forces? Does anybody know, other than Tom?
12,000.
12,000. Who had that answer? Oh, Jeff had the answer. Jeff was cheating too. All right. So the U.S. Army had 12,000 paratroopers scheduled to jump into Normandy. 12,000 out of all them sticks, and only 10. So a stick is an airplane, right? And on each aircraft, how many paratroopers did we have?
13.
12, 13, up to 16, right? Up to 16 paratroopers on a C-47. All right, so 16 times 10, I'm not good at math, Lou, but I do okay. I think it's 160. Okay. So out of 12,000 paratroopers, 160 of them landed where they were supposed to.
Did they drop any drones?
No drones, sorry.
No, but I mean,
Oh, you're talking about Rupert.
yeah, right, whatever you call it. Yeah, right.
Well, see, as Lou had a question, that's a very good thing, right? So, in our deception, we threw Rupert out of the airplanes to make them think we had way more paratroopers than we had, right? So Rupert, for those of you that don't know, he's a dummy that had a parachute that floated through the sky. And here's a fun fact for all of us Army paratroopers and even the Air Force paratroopers that go through. The poor U.S. Army Rangers that go through Ranger School, before they go to Airborne School, it stinks for them. They got to carry Rupert around the whole 3 weeks, right? Rupert's heavy. And they carry him around the entire 3 weeks because they decided to go to Ranger School before Airborne School. Just so happens. So thanks, Lou. That's Rupert. Right? So we threw Rupert out. The Pathfinders came in. So all of us that went over to the 101st, that's where the first Pathfinders landed to set up the beacons to show the airplanes we were supposed to land. All right. So we jump into here. The 82nd Airborne Division has 3 regiments jump into here. The 505, 507, and 508. There's one regiment out of all the airborne troops that 90% of them landed where they were supposed to, and that's the 10 Tom was talking about. Now, the reason they landed where they were supposed to is because they had already jumped in successfully into Italy. So their jump masters, or the guys that hang themselves out the door, looking at the landmarks, were able to identify where they were at, right? So Lieutenant Dolan with the 505 and his group landed just behind us here on their drop zone where they're supposed to. They were able to consolidate their forces fairly quickly. Their mission was this side of the causeway. This side of the causeway was their mission. All right, the 507 was supposed to be taking Amfreville, which is another little town just over the river here. All right. General Gavin, who was the deputy commander for the 82nd Airborne Division, actually missed his drop zone, and he landed in a field way out there and made his way here this morning. All right, so all the paratroopers are on the ground. They know we got to secure this side of the bridge. Lieutenant Dolan with the 505 grabbed his folks, moved over to the bridge, and very quickly they were actually able to secure this side of the bridge. All right? By 09, we had secured the other side of the causeway by the church. We're like, well, shoot, that was pretty simple, right? This was on June 6th. It got pretty sketchy after that. The German headquarters, as I said, was in Peekaville, which is just down this road off in that direction where the headquarters was. So now the 82nd Airborne Division is on the ground. They have checkpoints set up. They secured this side of the bridge. The 507th had secured that side of the bridge with Lieutenant Colonel Timms. All right? They secured the bridge. Lieutenant Colonel Timms says, all right, I'm going to carry on with my mission to take Amfreville, which is just that way. So he leaves 2 lieutenants and 14 soldiers standing by that little church over there. He takes off to carry on with his missions. If you need a blanket, Lou, are you okay? All right. So they secure that. We got this side of the bridge. Shortly thereafter, what happens? The Germans start their counterattacks. They know we're here. So, 4 French tanks come up this road. They make contact with the soldiers by that church. Unfortunately, you have 1 Panzer and 3 French Renault tanks that were captured. The fighting ensues. They chase those guys over the bridge. The rest of the 505 gets pushed to this side of the bridge. The fighting ensues that day. They fight back and forth to secure this bridge. We have many, many losses. At the same time, there's a manor right through these trees right here that there was also Germans in. So some of the paratroopers come around through here. They go to take the manor. The Germans trick them. They put a flag out the window that they're going to surrender. The paratrooper walks out to the middle of the courtyard and they shoot him. Well, now we know the Germans are in that building as well. Now, this is where the Germans made a mistake. The family that owned the house was downstairs in the basement. They pushed those soldiers out, or those family out of there, right into the hands of the paratroopers. And the paratroopers are no dummies. They said, how many are inside there? They told them. Eventually, we secured the manor. All right, so now we got the manor. We got this side. There's heavy fighting taking place for this causeway. Tanks are making their way over. We fight all day on the 6th, right? Now, at 1600 on the 6th, we've all heard about the glider regiments, correct? Right? So the gliders, if you don't know, were Waco gliders and Horsa gliders. The Waco glider was an American-made glider that would hold a Jeep and roughly about a platoon of soldiers. They could fit up to 22 on the Waco gliders, and they could fit about 30 onto the Horsa gliders, which were British-made and they were much larger. The Horsa gliders were made out of essentially plywood and canvas. That was it. In these fields then, so the chateau where the 325 landed is that direction about 5-6 kilometers. That direction. St. Mary Glees is right behind us. They landed in Fairville right over that direction. So the 505, the 507's fighting on this side of the bridge. Part of the 507 is scattered on that side of the bridge trying to take Amfreville. There's a lot of stuff happening. General Gavin had taken troops down the railroad tracks here over to Chef de Pont by where all of us are staying and Walk Among Heroes. That little bridge we've driven over and over is the area of that, right? So if you kind of see this map, you can see a lot of lines, and anybody that wants to come up after, I'll kind of show you. They were scattered all over the place. I'm saying this direction and that direction, this happened. All right, each regiment has how many soldiers in it? Does anybody know? Tom, help us out. Take a guess.
That depends on about 3,000, 4,000.
In a regiment, right?
Oh, the regiment?
Regiment,
Yeah.
right?
5,000.
All right, so you got to think there's 6,000 troopers scattered all over the place. Okay. So we're able to we have the fighting's entail here. On the 6th, the 325 gliders land over there. When they land, they had all this stuff called Rommel's asparagus all over fields. Does anybody know what Rommel's asparagus is? Nobody? All right, so what they essentially did, the Germans took these big long trees and they put them in the ground at 45-degree angles because they knew we had gliders. We'd already used gliders in Italy. They put them in these open fields, right, to make it hard for us to land. So they would hit those poles and it would actually destroy everything in the gliders. So the 325 is landing over there. They're hitting these things. It's blown apart. They suffered about a 30% casualty rate just trying to land in the fields. So they land in the fields around 1600. They start consolidating their forces to 325. The 505 is over here fighting like hell trying to get this causeway. So they consolidate their forces by around the 7th. They start making their way over here, right? On the 8th, everything kind of settled down. There wasn't a whole lot of fighting. We're waiting at the time for our reinforcements. At the same time, what's happening at Utah Beach? We've got the 4th Infantry Division, the 90th Infantry Division landed. They got to make their way here so we can get the airborne forces linked up with the forces coming from the sea. Okay, so they're waiting for reinforcements. Heavy fighting on the 6th, heavy fighting on the 7th. We make a big push late in the evening on the 8th to try to push our way across. At that time, the 325 is able to make their way over here as reinforcements, and we're able to push our way finally across this bridge. and secure the other side of the causeway. All right, so within 3 days, the 82nd Airborne Division suffered extremely high losses during that time period. Let's see here. And I'll go over. All right, maybe. Let me get it together. No, somebody stole my page. All right, there was heavy losses secured here. Well, I'll show you. Right on the other side of this statue are the numbers. But at the end of the day, it took them 3 days to secure this bridge and the other little bridge on the Fiere. Now, I said all these were flooded. The paratroopers are coming in. Some of them are drowning in the water. You can see here there's a harness for the parachutes. At that time, the U.S. Army did not have quick release harnesses on their parachutes. The British did. So now you're chest high in this water, you're trying to get out of your parachute, and you just can't get out of it, right? So you gotta unbuckle it. They would have to cut their way out of their harnesses, and it was just brutal fighting at this location here. All right? So that's kind of what happened in 3 days in a nutshell. If anybody's got any more questions, I can answer them. But I want to give everybody a chance to kind of walk around, look at the monuments. When we walked up, there's a gentleman named PFC de Glopper. Him and his squad was with the 325. They were trying to make their way across this marshy area behind us to reinforce that side. They were trying to come up on the rear flank of the Germans that were on the other side. Unfortunately, they made heavy contact with their squad. And PFC de Glopper was a BAR man. And he tried to lay down cover fire so his squad could retreat. He took a couple bullets. He went down to one knee. He continued suppressive fire so his squad could actually come back across. And those were the heroic actions of PFC de Glopper that you'll see on the plaque over here. And there's a memorial just down the road. You got any questions, Lou?
Nope.
How about you, Jack? Did I explain it in any kind of way that made sense or no?
Pretty well.
Everybody else is like, nope, I didn't understand nothing. It's a very long battle, but and up here you'll be able to see on this diorama behind me, there's a parachute on the outside of this. You'll see a harness down here, and this kind of outlays the battle for the Fiere. I'll push you up here a little bit, Lou. And everybody will get a chance to come up and take a look at this.